Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, and this is 100 Yards of Football. This is the show. Vincent and I started this, 2 years ago. He's been doing it for a decade and asked me to be a part of it. I'm Harper LeBel. Joining me, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, is Brian LeBel and our host and founder, Vincent Turner. Vincent, welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. It's been a week since we were on last, and too bad we don't have anything about college football to talk about this week to catch up not only with the playoff, but with bowl games and everything that else is going on. I hope that you have spent many a day in the library studying, doing all of the extracurricular activity to get yourself ready for where we are right now.
Hey man, I'm very excited. What more can you say? We almost there to get into the national championship game. We got the first round of the playoffs kicking off, and all I can say is it's just like the young man out of Motown, out of Washington D.C., the great Marvin Gaye. Let's get it on. Back to you, Hart.
Well, we got to get ready to rumble, don't we? We'll do that. And for obvious reasons, Brian LeBel joining us on the show. Brian, first and foremost, welcome to 100 Yards of Football. Obviously, our NFL and our NCAA analyst. We'll talk mostly about the NCAA today. Brian, first and foremost, your opinion about the playoff. I know there's some teams that were out there that go, hey, we should be screaming to get in. We want to fight to get in. We're going to complain if we don't get in. But all for naught. The 12 teams were set. Notre Dame, for example, being one of those that was just set outside. And they weren't going to let the Irish in this year.
I think the Miami tiebreaker was kind of the end-all be-all for them. And I think the committee kind of had to do that because if you put Notre Dame in and you keep Miami out or whatever happens and the G5 teams and all this stuff that get thrown around, there were promises made. They kept the promises, but the whole system right now is a mess. I think teams like James Madison and Tulane are going to have to show up. I think maybe not necessarily win, but have to play competitive games. Otherwise, I think we're going to have another big shakeup because for whatever reason, they just can't seem to figure out the formatting and the right way to do the college football playoff. But either way, there's some good games coming up. There's some good teams. I think realistically, based on the results of the conference championship games, I wouldn't be surprised if 4 or 5 of these teams walked away hoisting that coveted college football playoff trophy at the end of it.
Well, Vincent, Notre Dame, as I mentioned to Brian, they were ousted. Do you have any thoughts in particular about the teams that were on the bubble that were not included to allow Tulane and James Madison in?
I thought Vanderbilt should have got a consideration based on the fact they went 10-2 in the SEC. Then you could probably make a point for Texas. They had a big win over Texas A&M. To be honest, I would have took both of them schools over Notre Dame. But as I said early in the week, and I said a later part of last week, Notre Dame, it was your schedule. Outside Miami and Texas A&M, which was your 2 toughest games, you lost both of them games. So it's a no-brainer to me, and your most impressive win was over USC. But if you look at Alabama, well, a lot of people saying, well, why Alabama got in? Well, basically, Alabama played in a tougher conference. And Alabama played in their championship game, their conference championship game, and lost, even though they lost. But at the end of the day, I think the committee got it right with not letting Notre Dame in because their 2 toughest games, they went 0-2. That's simple. Back to you, Hart.
I know you didn't ask, but my opinion would be I think this is the NCAA's lone authority footprint that they're making where they're going to tell the Irish, no more. We're not going to deal with you only as a separate and independent. You're not in a conference. You don't want to be in a conference. You've never wanted to be. You wanted to be independent. And as you mentioned, Vincent, a lighter schedule. And you lost both of your, you don't have any conference games, but you lost 2 of the better teams. Too bad, so sad. And I think it's going to force Notre Dame to reconsider joining a conference. I know they're in one for basketball and for all of their other sports that they have, what's convenient for them. I think a Big Ten schedule would be perfect from where they sit, where they locate. But the market with the ACC seems to be real good for them from a basketball and maybe a baseball schedule. I don't know how you split that up, but that's just my personal opinion is the NCAA told you, hey, forget it. You think of all the money that Notre Dame loses by not being in it, that they don't have to share with a conference that every other school has to. To not take money into consideration here, it's a part of it. So I may not know anything about it, but I just think that was their one way to kind of flex their muscles as the NCAA and tell Notre Dame, stick it. I don't think Tulane or James Madison are better than Notre Dame, but they're in because they were conference champions. And even though they're a smaller champion, status wise, in the the lower 5 conferences, congratulations, they made it. And Mountain West didn't make it. There's some other conferences. You mentioned Vanderbilt. There's some other schools that were close but didn't get in. But we do have 12 teams, and unless there's another comment on that, let's talk about what we do have. How about that? We'll move on to tomorrow night's game, December 19th, Oklahoma and Alabama. This will be at Oklahoma Stadium in Norman, 8 o'clock on ABC. Rematch. Vincent, I'll start with you. This, to me, is the marquee game of the weekend, and for obvious reasons, the two of the better schools from a traditional standpoint. They played each other just a couple weeks ago. I think Alabama has an advantage because they can probably say, we didn't play well and we only lost by this amount at our home, but now let's go repay them, as opposed to Oklahoma saying we did everything we could to win that game. Now we're going to have to just relaunch everything and do it again. I'm talking too much. Vincent, take over. Tell me where you think this game should end up. Again, it's at 8 o'clock on ESPN, ABC networks.
I always look at this football game, and you're looking at both teams. To me, it's very plain and simple. Which quarterback is going to play the best in this football game and who's going to be able to run the football? I'm going to start with Alabama. Alabama had that run where they beat Georgia, they beat Vanderbilt, they beat Missouri, they beat Tennessee, and we was talking about, including myself, Ty Simpson for the Heisman. Realistically, he hasn't played good football the last couple of weeks. And the one thing that blows my mind with Alabama and their offense is that where is Ryan Williams at, their best player? And Alabama doesn't have a running game. So make it plain and simple. You're going up to Norman, Oklahoma. You had 3 turnovers in the first game and you lost 23-21. It led to 17 points for Oklahoma. Ty Simpson has to play well on Friday night if Alabama's going to win this football game. And as far as Oklahoma, what is the health for John McTeer? I don't think it's been very healthy. That's why Oklahoma struggled offensively, but the Sooners have played defense off the charts. That's why they had the number 1 defense in the SEC. So I get back to my original point. The game is going to come down to which quarterback plays well, and if Alabama's going to have a chance to beat Oklahoma and stop Oklahoma from beating them 3 times in 2 years, Ty Simpson has to play well, and they have to have a running game.
Before I go to Brian, Vincent, real quick, does Alabama have an asset, or is it a detriment that they had to play in the SEC championship game against Georgia where Oklahoma got to sit and watch?
No, I don't think so. A lot of people may make a lot out of that, but no, you playing football, you playing at a championship level, I don't think it has no bearing, because now this is a game that counts. Your season ends on this game here. Back to you, Harp.
Brian, same question to you. Does Alabama have an asset in terms of another week of playing where Oklahoma got to rest and watch? Or does Oklahoma have the advantage where they get to rest and watch and get to see the team that they're playing live, even though they didn't know who they were going to play yet? They knew that there was a game that they could watch. You've got 3 SEC schools playing this weekend, 4 actually, in 3 different games. I'm liking Oklahoma's chances at home to do, if they play anywhere close to what they did against Alabama in Tuscaloosa just a couple weeks ago. First and foremost, give me your thoughts.
I think the fact that Alabama still also has an extra week, right? They still had 2 weeks to get ready for this one, almost 2 full weeks. I don't think it's that big of an issue. I think when you have extra time to prepare in any capacity, I think at a certain point, there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much preparation and film you can watch. These teams are pretty familiar with each other as well. They've played each other. They've watched each other. This was kind of foreseen. I think both these teams knew if we made the playoff, there's a good chance we're going to see one of these guys early on. So I don't know if there's a real advantage. I will say, I think Alabama, maybe coming off the loss from Georgia, I think maybe it kind of wakes them up a little bit. I think maybe it makes them a little hungrier. I think maybe they kind of look at what they did wrong and can reevaluate, whereas Oklahoma just kind of sat back and said, okay, let's rest up. Let's do what we need to do to get ready. But, it's hard to beat a team multiple times in the same year. That rings true at every level of football, whether it's the NFL or college or whatever it is. But you have, 2 very good teams. I think Alabama, like Vincent said, I think Alabama's got the advantage at quarterback right now. I don't know. Mateer just hasn't seemed right since he came back. But I need to see Alabama run the football a little bit. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think both defenses are going to play well. I wouldn't be surprised if both these teams end up under 21, 24 points. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. I think there'll be a lot of punts, a lot of field position, and I think it's going to maximize turnovers, right? I think it's going to be which team is the first to make a crucial mistake, and can the other guys capitalize off of it? Because both teams have good defenses. It's just the offenses have been woeful at times.
Two teams that have won 10 games, 10-3. Alabama at Oklahoma. It's going to be an 8 o'clock kick Eastern time. That's a late start for a lot of these guys. They're going to be up for it. I get it. What's the weather going to be in terms of a factor? Will that be something that is I don't think it's a massive disadvantage for Alabama. A slight one, though, if it's going to be cold and windy, which it should be. I think Oklahoma is a little more used to something like that. And in my opinion, the run game, especially if you fall behind, is going to be critically important for either team. You keep the ball out of the air with the wind, and then obviously bad things can happen when you're throwing the ball and you don't know where it's going to go. Vincent, give me your final thoughts here on this one.
Very simple. I'm gonna take Alabama in this game. I think they do to play well. They're getting healthy. They're gonna have Jam Miller back as a running back. He's a senior. When he's in the lineup, Alabama seems to have a sensible running game, and that's going to be the key right there. Most of all, to me, if Alabama's able to run the football, I think they're going to be able to win the football game. Back to you, Hawk.
Brian, final thoughts. Does the weather have anything to do with this? And if so, tell me how.
I don't think it'll be too cold. I think the weather's supposed to be in the high 40s, low 50s around kick, which is good because it could have been a lot worse, right? It could have been one of those freezing games where Alabama has to go play outside, and that obviously they don't want to have to do that. But I think the crowd is going to be raucous. I think that's going to give Oklahoma an advantage. But offensively, I just think Alabama's too good. This Oklahoma team is not very efficient offensively. If Alabama plays a clean football game, if they do not turn the football over and they don't spot Oklahoma points like they did last time, I think the Crimson Tide walk away with this one.
Next game at Kyle Field in Texas. A&M will host Miami. Miami's number 10 in the country. A&M has been 1-2 and 3, and for most of the season they dropped to 7. But is this a redemption game for them? They're knocked out of the SEC playoff. They're knocked out of having a bye week. They're knocked out of a lot of things by their rival Texas. Is this a game, Ryan? I'll start with you. Is that A&M just kind of flexes their muscle, or is this where Miami says not only is our history on our side, but we get a pretty good team. We're the only one in the ACC that gets a chance to play here in the playoff with that interesting championship game with Virginia and Duke winning it, really knocking Virginia and everybody else out. I'm very interested in this one too. But again, noon at Kyle Field. This is an ABC ESPN game as well.
I think if Miami wants to win this game, I think Carson Beck is going to have to play a clean game, much like the other game. Obviously, it's the playoffs now, right? Everything's being magnified. Texas A&M is a good front. They can get after the quarterback. They can put a lot of pressure on you. They're great with their front seven, and I think that's going to be the crucial matchup. How does Miami deal with that? I think Malachi Toney is going to have a good game for the Hurricanes. I think he's been an absolute gem for them this season. He's been a real spark on offense. When they're rolling, usually it's because he's rolling. The last couple of games, Carson Beck kind of struggled, though, with the turnovers. He didn't look like himself earlier in the year. I don't know if he's a little banged up. I don't know what the issue is, but he's got to play a clean game. They're going to have to run the football, and they're going to have to avoid getting punched in the mouth early because that crowd is going to be loud. It's going to be a hostile environment. This Texas A&M team is very, very good. There was a stretch where we had them, I mean, most people did, right behind Ohio State as the best team in the country, and I think that still kind of rings true. I think they tripped up a little bit at the finish line. I think Texas A&M wins this one. I think Miami has a chance, though, but they're going to have to play a very clean, nearly perfect football game in order to pull it out.
Going for an undefeated season, Vincent, and coming so close, but losing to Texas the way that they did. It was 27-17, the final there. Everyone else was a very comfortable win for them. They got challenged in a way they hadn't been all season. They weren't able to respond to that. Will they be able to come from behind if Miami ends up scoring? Miami's won 5 of their last 6. 38-7 against Pitt, 34-17 against Virginia Tech. They were 41-7 against North Carolina State, 38-10 against Syracuse. Their defense and offense are both kind of sinking together and playing very well. Give me your thoughts here.
Of course, I mean, Texas A&M was shooting for undefeated season, wanted to come here to Atlanta, be the first undefeated team. out of Texas A&M, even come to Atlanta. I think Texas A&M hasn't even stepped soil on the state of Georgia. So it's probably disappointing, no question about it. But one thing about this A&M team, when they rocking, their quarterback is special. Out of the 615, give them some love. Marcel Reed. He was in Heisman discussions, and he's a very tough through-a-threat player. Then they got Casey Concepcion that makes plays, and Mario Craver. They got a very explosive football team, and as you mentioned, Hop, they've been playing, as Brian mentioned, they played pretty well defensively, but they kind of took a step back. I was really surprised that Texas was able to move the ball on 'em. But one thing about A&M, and we had Mr. Jackie Sherrill, former A&M great. What did he say, Hop? That 100,000 in the 12th man, that something we're going to be real serious, and they're going to be having that brown liquor ready to go early Saturday morning. Not
Yeah.
to Miami. Mario Cristobal. You've been lobbying about the U being back, baby. You've been talking about y'all deserve to be in the playoffs. Okay, you got what you want. To me, I want to see how Carson Beck plays. This is a huge football game for him in a sense that we know how his situation ended at Georgia. And to be honest, he played very well out of the gates. But in the games they lost, like Brian said, he turned the football over and go back to the SMU game. He made some bad picks in that game. It cost them to lose that football game.
Yep.
But I'm gonna leave it at this. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game because A&M with Marcel Reed, if he healthy, they're gonna be putting the pressure on scoring points. It's whether or not Miami can play a little bit better defensively and contain him. And Carson Beck has to not turn the ball over. And Ruben Bain Jr., baby, out of Miami, you've been talking about you the best defensive end in the country. There's money on the table. Let's see how you and the Miami defense contain Marcel Reed on Saturday. Back to you, Hart.
Yep, Miami at Texas A&M, Kyle Field. It'll be noon kickoff on ABC. Next game we're going to look at 11-2. They're ranked 11th here in the tournament. They're the Tulane Green Wave. Ends up going to Ole Miss. They'll be in Oxford. Ole Miss, the Rebels, they were 11-1. This is a 3:30 kick. This will be on TNT. We don't know much about Tulane from a national perspective, but their record speaks for itself. Their quarterback's thrown for 2,800 yards. He's got 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Leading rusher, 610 yards. Leading sack player, Dyson, he's got 7 sacks. You know, they're a good football team. They've won a lot of games now. They beat Memphis, Florida Atlantic, Temple, Charlotte, North Texas, UNT. I'm looking at the schedule. It's not
North
UNT.
Texas is a good team now.
Texas.
They're a good team.
I know. But Mississippi State, Florida, Citadel, South Carolina, and Oklahoma are the last 5 wins for Ole Miss. There's no way to rank the two of these in terms of importance. Brian, I'll start with you. They were 7-1 in the conference, 11-1 overall. The better team on paper and probably on the field is Ole Miss. Do they just have to play an average game in order to win this, or is this going to be one of those ones that if they take a playoff or two, they might find themselves on the wrong end of the scoreboard here late in the second, maybe third, even in the beginning of the fourth quarter?
This is the messiest game of the weekend, and a lot of that has to do with coaching, right? There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of uncertainty. Both of these programs have been through a lot as far as who's going to be the coach, who's going to be calling plays, who's not, who's staying, who's going, and it's just been an absolute roller coaster. Probably a little more so for Ole Miss, right, than Tulane, but both these teams have been dealing with a lot of stuff off the field. I think Ole Miss is a more talented football team. I think they should win this football game. I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to respond well. Really, for them, though, it's almost like a blessing in disguise because no one's really talked about the football aspect of it, right? It was the Lane Kiffin show here in college football for about 2 weeks, and all Ole Miss really had to do was just kind of, hey, figure out who's calling plays, figure out who's coaching, figure out who's suiting up, and then just, make sure that we do everything we can to get ready for it. I think they're a 17.5-point favorite. They're a very good football team, Ole Miss is, and, they showed that all year. I think before all this, I think they were a serious contender, maybe not the best team in the country, but maybe if like Georgia or Ohio State or someone slipped up, they can maybe get them on a bad day. I think they'll beat Tulane. I don't know about that any longer being my prediction, but it's going to be it might be a sloppy game, and I wouldn't be surprised because you got new play callers. These teams have had a lot of time off as well. Tulane's a good football team, and I'll say that they got a lot going for them. They had a phenomenal year, and I think they earned their spot in the playoff. But I think Ole Miss is above and beyond better, and I think they're going to win this game pretty handily.
Vincent, You agree?
100% correct. I think if anything, I want to see Pete Golden. He was talking a lot of noise saying, hey, Lane is gone, it's my show. And when he came in and got introduced to the team stood up and went crazy. So at the end of the day, Tulane, what's amazing to me and kind of unusual, John Summerall is still coaching the team. And
Yeah.
he not really took the Florida job. To me, that seems weird. I'm going to use a situation like Bo Schembechler. Harper, you can remember this. What was it? Bill Frieda, I think, took the job at Arizona State. And what did Coach Schembechler say? Nah, you're not a Michigan man. And Steve Fisher went on and won the national championship. That just kind of unusual to me. But Ole Miss should roll in this game. I think they're going to be motivated. I think they got a very good quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. I think their receiving core is the best in the college football playoffs that we haven't talked about. Young man I seen play at Douglas County, Deuce Alexander. I know his father personally, Hilton, is a phenomenal football player. Kawan Lacey had over, 1,200 yards. I think they're going to roll down into Oxford. And Mr. Harper LeBel, you saw him play up close and personal, so you could put the stamp on it. Ole Miss is going to roll out of Oxford. And they're going to be playing in the Sugar Bowl against them dogs again. Back to you, Harp.
If you give their quarterback a chance to throw those deep crossing routes, it's going to be an ugly, ugly, deep ball. We can't stop you type thing. You better get some pressure on their quarterback, especially when he's going to try to go deep. It's unbelievable. They're very good. All right, 12-1 James Madison, 12-1. They're ranked number 12, right? The last team that maybe sneaked their way in, if you will, but they're in. Doesn't matter. Going against number 5 Oregon Ducks. Oregon is 11-1. They're at home. This is a 7:30 kick. Vincent, I'll start with you. It'll be on TNT. Oregon should probably roll. They are a very, very good football team, but don't be surprised at what these little band of misfits, right? These 3-star kids that don't get heavily recruited to go to the big school because they're an inch too short or they're a tenth of a second too slow. I think James Madison, to their credit, and I've had a problem with them at Georgia State. We can't beat them. I wish we could, but they have prepared themselves to get to a game like this in a way that would be a Xerox copy blueprint for other schools to follow. Doing things right, the way you recruit, the way you build your program, the way you build your stadium, the way you just kind of do thing one after another from a discipline standpoint, very impressive. Remember last year they were playing Appalachian State undefeated, and that was the first time game day, college game day was there on their campus. And now they're in the playoff. You got to be kidding me at how good and how perfectly, I guess you could say. Now I'm being very liberal with my words right here, but how the results speak for themselves. Vincent, I'll start with you. Alonzo Barnett, 2,533 yards, not that big, or 2,533, but 12-8. That's a good ratio, 3-1 with your TDs and your interceptions. Their leading rusher has got over 1,200 yards. They can get to the quarterback. They've got defensive players that are good. They're not the best in the world, but they're a sound football team. And at 12-1, they deserve to be there.
Um, of course, you got a lot of loyalty and love for James Madison. You've seen him play over the years, and you respect their program. I'm gonna tell you an interesting tidbit I saw on social media yesterday. They had all the NFL prospects of all the college teams that's in the playoffs, and they had Oregon that's got like maybe 13 or 14 players that's gonna get drafted in the draft, and they had only one player from James Madison, and they had him going in the 7th round. So that be that speaking, I like the quarterback from James Madison, Mr. Barnett. I'm gonna call him Mister. He's a guy that's very explosive. And I like the running back Wayne Knight. But I'm gonna tell you this. I think the season's in, and I just hope Quack Quack Nation, the Ducks, Dan Lanning has a habit of running the score up. I hope he don't try to make a statement on Saturday night in Eugene. Dante Moore has not played well in the last few weeks. You know Oregon and Dan Lanning got his first job at the 901 University of Memphis, baby. You know he's gonna be licking his chops to run the score up, and he wants Oregon to look good. And Oregon, when you look at it, we have talked about Oregon quietly, but we hadn't talked about them in the last few years being the best team, that Oregon team that's just excited with their uniforms and putting up points on people. And last year coming in as the number 1 seed. This year with the loss to Indiana, that kind of set them back, and they kind of been quiet this year. I think Oregon's gonna roll big on Saturday against James Madison. Now that Dan Lanning seems like he's a coach that likes the spotlight because he does a lot of talking. Back to you, Hawk.
Ryan, the spread is 21 points. Vincent's going to make it sound like it's 40, should be 42 or even more than that. Um, in a well played Oregon team, it would be capable of doing something if they hit it on all cylinders. They're capable of doing that. But one thing about James Madison that I've noticed over the years is it doesn't matter who they play, they're very competitive. They're not going to go down easily, and unless they're just going against an impenetrable force with Oregon's defense, I think it'll be one of those things. Okay, well, you kick me in the teeth. I get it. Now it's my turn to kick you back, and it may not hurt as much, but I'm gonna give you everything I got. What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna give credit to Dan Lanning here. I think he's a good coach. I think he's gonna have his guys ready. I think they're gonna need to be, because if they take James Madison lightly in the beginning of the game and they can develop some momentum, maybe a turnover, maybe somehow with the lead, right? And I almost wonder if James Madison, if they go in here and if they win the toss, if they don't say we're going to receive, we're going to try to go score, and you know what I mean? Maybe hush up the crowd a little bit, maybe get some momentum, maybe kind of put Oregon with their backs against the wall a little bit. But I mean, like Vincent mentioned, above and beyond, this Oregon team is talented. They're one of the most talented rosters in the country, and they flew a little under the radar in the Big Ten. I think everybody had Ohio State as the big dogs, right? As the top team in the Big Ten coming into this the start of the season, and Oregon was second. I think Indiana kind of surprised a lot of people, obviously, and what they've done is Cinderella type college basketball type run. But this Oregon team was supposed to be here, and we're getting to the point where Phil Knight's he's throwing a ton of money into this thing. He wants the Ducks to win. I don't know if they've ever had a roster like top to bottom that's better than this one that they have right now. I mean, if you look at the offensive front, the defensive front, Dante Moore has a chance to be the first quarterback taken off the board. They got an elite tight end group. They got good receivers. I mean, they're just stellar across the board, and every single reason for me to go against James Madison. But like you said, I think they got a lot of confidence. I don't think they're afraid of anybody. I think they're going to come out here punching. I don't think that means they're going to win the game, but I think, I think they might make it a little bit closer. I do think Oregon's going to cover, like Vincent said. I think Oregon's probably going to blow them out, but I think this game is probably going to be a little bit closer than the scoreboard entails. And I think they're playing for all of these smaller schools that are getting a seat at the table now, because a lot of the Notre Dame people, a lot of the other teams that got kind of left out or the first ones out, like the Texas, like the Vanderbilt, they're kind of complaining that teams like Tulane and James Madison shouldn't be here. And, I think that gives them a ton of motivation to show up and say, hey, even if we lose, we're going to have to play these teams tough and show that we deserved our spot and that we earned it. And that going forward, the format is working and it doesn't need to change.
It's always going to be an interesting dynamic. And if they are blowouts, for example, if James Madison or Tulane or both are blown out, they may have to reconsider the gift that they gave each of those schools. Miami, Texas A&M winner gets Ohio State. James Madison, Oregon winner gets to go to the Orange Bowl against Texas Tech. By the way, the first game, the Cotton Bowl, that'll be where Ohio State is. That's on Wednesday, the 31st. On January 1st, the Orange Bowl, the winner of the Madison-Oregon game gets Tech. The Rose Bowl will be the winner of the Alabama-Oklahoma game. They get to go against Indiana, number one team in the country. Congratulations. Here's your next best scenario. Tulane Ole Miss winner gets Georgia. That'll be in the Sugar Bowl. That's later in the evening, the 8 p.m. kick for that. Vincent, real quick, there's thoughts on these teams that are sitting here in the bye know who they're going to play so they can watch the game differently. Just trying to figure out some things. Superior advantage, in my opinion, especially at the college level, to give your kids an extra week off. Yes, there's the possibility of rust and some other things, but you get to enjoy Christmas in a different manner, and you get to enjoy a couple of days at home before it's time to go back to work.
I don't think it's going to be any problems. I think when you look at it, you're going to get to be able to rest, see who you're going to play. I think it takes a little more time, maybe game prep, but I don't think it's going to be any big really decision of making than the team sitting that has buys. If it was me, I like to play this week. I think if you look at it, it's seemingly in an NFL type format, playing every week and keeping yourself sharp. But I tell you what, we got some good matchups. If Ole Miss does what they do against Tulane, that rematch against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl is going to be huge. And then I'm really looking forward to the Rose Bowl. Got the number one ranked Indiana. Think about it. They playing the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma. That's going to be a real good game, special game. But at the end of the day, it's college football, and at this time, you want to know which team is the healthiest, and that's what I be looking at. Which team is the healthiest? Back to you, Hart.
Well, obviously, those games a week from now. Get yourselves ready for that, folks. But in the meanwhile, we went over the four most important games for this weekend. There's also some bowl games. Missouri State is at Arkansas State. That's in the Xbox Bowl. That is tonight, actually, going on right now. The Myrtle Beach Bowl will have Kennesaw State, and congratulations to the Owls. They're going to play Western Michigan. That'll be at Brooks Stadium there in Conway. And a game, Vincent, that means nothing to you is the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, where Memphis takes on North Carolina State. That will also be tomorrow night about 2:30 on Friday. Real quick, Vincent, Brian, you and I we can end the show because Vincent would end talking about Memphis Tigers and how good they are and everything that's going on. Raymond James Stadium hosts this ball game. Memphis, give me a couple of thoughts here about your Tigers, and I won't call them what I call them. I'm gonna be nice. The Tigers and the Wolfpack.
I look at the ball game. It's exciting. Memphis is playing in a good ball. They're playing against a good opponent. But I'll be telling you a lie. I wish they was in the playoffs. I thought early on they had a great shot, but that didn't work out. But I can tell you this: since you throwing comments out there and throwing shots this evening, we got a new coach in Charles Huff, former running back coach at the University of Alabama. He's won at Marshall, which you should know about, and he's won at Southern Miss. So at the end of the day, I'm a proud Tiger. The 901 will rise, and who knows? Next year we might be playing in the playoffs. But I'm very disappointed we didn't make it this year. Back to you, Mr. Harper LeBel.
Idaho famous potato bowl, Washington State and Utah State. The winner gets a bunch of hot French fries thrown all over him. You get a little grease on your shirt, but it's kind of a nice little wet thing at Albertson Stadium there in Boise. Toledo and Louisville take in the Boca Raton Bowl, and it's called Bush's Boca Raton Bowl of Beans. You got to come up with a better name than that. I'm sorry. I mean, the Tax Slayer Bowl, and there's some other ones out there, but the Bush's Boca Raton Bowl of Beans. That's what it's called, ladies and gentlemen.
Rolls
New
off
Orleans
the tongue.
Bowl, Western Kentucky and Southern Miss. The Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl, UNLV in Ohio. Wednesday, the Sheridan Bowl. That's California and Hawaii. Central Michigan and Northwestern will play in the Game Above Sports Bowl. And let's see, New Mexico and Minnesota are at the Rate Bowl. The Serve Pro First Responders Bowl is Florida International at University of Texas, San Antonio. And then you go into some Saturday games for, obviously, we'll talk about them next week. But anything else stick out for you, Brian? Are those games that you just can't wait? It's the most exciting time of the year. Or are those ones that you're going, okay, I might watch a little bit of one or two, but I'm going to wait till the playoff?
A lot of it's kind of become background noise now, unfortunately. You got guys entering the portal days before their team's bowl weeks and their bowl games. It's kind of tough to get excited for anything other than the playoff right now. So that's I'm looking forward to the playoff games. Everything else is just you hope it's a good game, and if you like gambling, I guess you can bet on those. So that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, is where we're at. And Vincent, you've already mentioned the Memphis aspect of this and their new coach. There are going to be a lot of new coaches. We're going to talk about some other things later on. But before we go, let's talk a little bit about just getting ready to kick off. The Rams are at Seattle. This is a pro game. This is going to have obvious playoff effects. If you don't mind, it's a part of 100 Yards of Football. It's just the pro game, and it's the Thursday night game, the retro jersey game. Give me your thoughts here on this one before we head out tonight.
Man, what more can you say? Matthew Stafford, in my opinion, is the MVP this year in the 2025 NFL season. Very surprised that the Rams have stayed very consistent and play real well. Mike McDonald, man, if y'all want to say anything, think about this, and I'm going to say it real closely. He came in for an interview with the Atlanta Falcons, and out the blank let him walk. I don't have to say no more.
A couple guys let walk. They're doing real well. Yeah. Couple of those guys.
Yeah, but Seattle is playing at a high level. Sam Darnold, what more can you say? Very, very good football team. And as Brian said earlier, before we came on, he said the team that wins this game could easily be the number one seed in the NFC West. And then throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
Back to you, Hop.
Well, Brian, your thoughts here. I know that defense wins championships. Both teams play great defense. They're both in the top five. And Seattle at home, obviously with that 12th man, they played very close up until the end when they were in LA just a couple of weeks ago. Give me your thoughts here on this one.
Sam Darnold's got to play a clean football game. I can't have 4 interceptions this time. If he plays a clean game, we got a chance to win. I think that's what you need. The defense is good enough. The Rams are without Devontae Adams. They kind of stifled them, really. The Rams had the first 2 drives of the game were fantastic last time they played. They didn't do anything the rest of the time. So I need a clean game from Darnold. They're at home. If they can do that, ride the momentum, run the ball a little bit. I haven't seen them do that in a while. I need them to run the ball a little bit too. And if they could do that, I think Seattle could win. And I mean, it's crazy to think that Sam Darnold has a chance to play 2 consecutive years on 2 different teams that win 13 or 14 ball games. It's a pretty impressive feat. I think that speaks well for him. I think the best thing for him was getting out of New York and getting a coach behind him that believes him, which I think he's got here in Seattle. And I think both these teams are really good. Both these teams could very easily be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I'm looking forward to watching this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we appreciate you being a part of the show. We know there's a lot of football to watch this weekend. We hope you find a great game or two that you can talk about with your family and friends. Obviously, with the holidays coming in, there'll be plenty of folks that will be discussing football and what's going on. Yes, you can talk about some of the other things, but that doesn't matter. Who cares about what's going on with the economy and world peace and everything else? You got football to talk about, and it starts tonight, obviously, from the NFL level, the college football playoff, which we've dissected here tonight. Obviously, some great games that'll be over the weekend and very important ones that will be a part of the playoff, shaping into who the national championship game will be and who that will include. So we appreciate you being a part of the show. For Brian LeBel, I'm Harper LeBel, and our co-host and founder, Vincent Turner, saying thank you for watching 100 Yards of Football. We appreciate it. Tell your friends, and have a great rest of your day.